Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be taking a look at helicopter assistance options built into Flight Sim. Now this is one of those situations where I say just because you can doesn't necessarily mean you have to use them. It's really dependent on the kind of controls that you have at home and the kind of experience you're looking to have. So right now we're in our handy dandy Bell 407, absolutely fantastic helicopter. They did a really nice job modeling this. It's probably less twitchy than a real helicopter. I know people are like, wait, they get twitchier? Yeah, they do. Try one. But one of the things they've done to make our life a little bit simpler is if you go up to the flight assistant, you're going to notice there's nothing here that helps us out as far as controlling this aircraft goes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take off. I'll do a quick little pattern here. Of course, I can disengage the parking brake that doesn't exist, and we're just going to kind of rip along and do this normally. Now, a little tiny things that you want to observe is, although I have a little bit of time in helicopters and I do have experience with them, they're not necessarily something that I consider myself to be fantastic at. I really don't think I'm really great at anything when it comes to flying, to be honest. Some things I do okay. I don't think I'm an expert. You need a good 10, 15,000 hours to really be an expert at things flying. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and rip around the pattern very relaxing here. And there's a couple little things I want you to observe as I'm flying around the pattern here. One thing I want you to observe is the overall steadiness of the helicopter. And I want you to observe, as I'm rolling out of my turn here, how coordinated is everything. Other things I want you to observe is, how stable is it? Do you notice that it's starting to kind of wave back and forth a little tiny bit? Again, I have no assistance options enabled. This is just my default method of flying here. And keep in mind, I have some controls that make it a lot easier. My joystick has a 100mm extension on it, for example. I have very easy to move rudder pedals, which I'm using for anti-torque here. My throttle is not a cheap throttle. It's very expensive. One of these days, I'll get myself an actual collective rather than rely on a throttle, but that day is not quite here yet. Now, I want you to observe as we're starting to make our transition here, we're going to start making our way back down nice and gently. Again, I'm trying every effort I can to keep this as smooth as possible. I can already feel a little bit of tension starting to form up on my left leg, which is completely par for the course when it comes to flying helicopters. Trust me on that one. And we're just going to basically guide ourselves back down from which we came. And then we're going to go take a look at our systems options and see what happens as far as our controls goes. By the way, helicopters, you never want to do a quick descent. That's a quick and easy way to get vortex ring, and then you crash. So I'll be very cautious with that in the real world. Not that you'd be using flight sim as real world practice anyway. Really? I hope you don't. Honestly, the only thing you can use a flight sim for is familiarization where the buttons are, avionics familiarization, and if you really want to push it, navigation. I think it does a pretty nice job at that. All right, let's go ahead and settle back down to the grass here. We'll go ahead and put ourselves in a nice relaxing hover. And again, this is requiring a lot of concentration. There we go. Again, this is a fantastic helicopter, so they really make it easy to do this with. And we're just going to settle back into the grass. This is the hardest part in my mind, is trying to get that last 6 inches, I like to say. There we go. Oh, that could have been a little smoother. All right, cool. Now let's take a look at our assistance options. Heading over here, we have piloting, and you're going to see we have tons of, I don't fly with any of these here. We have a bunch of different things here. One thing we have here is we have a tail rotor assistance, and we have an assisted cyclic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click both of those turned on, apply and save. Go ahead and exit ourselves out, resume. So now what I'm going to do is I've got myself my little pedals here. And you notice, by the way, if I push the left pedal, it doesn't do anything anymore. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to apply collective, and I'm not pushing the pedals at all. As a matter of fact, I've let go of controls completely. So my hands are not on the controls right now. I'm not pushing the rudders. The only thing I'm doing is giving this just a tiny bit here. And you can see we are just frozen. We're just parked. Again, I'm not doing anything. You can see that this controller is not moving in the slightest. And basically, we're sitting here in the world's most perfect hover. And again, I know how to fly a helicopter a little bit, as I've stated, but to hold this requires a lot of effort. One thing I do want you to observe, though, is if you look really carefully here, and again, it's going to be tough to notice, you can see the fact that my helicopter is wobbling like this. Pull it down just a little bit. You see how it's chasing itself? It's got this little whoa to it, but notice how absurdly steady this is. I can get out of this, go make myself some tea downstairs and come back, and this helicopter will still be in the spot, but I haven't even touched my controls yet to give you an idea of how strong that is. Now I'm just going to go ahead and nose over here. And one thing I noticed right away is, again, I'm not pushing the pedals. I have not touched them yet. You can see they're just sitting there. I'm just tilting. Again, this is like flying, what is it, that electric helicopter, the Velocity. And I just go. Again, I'm holding the same altitude here. I can just kind of sit here. And if I were sitting on my little T16000 joystick, no problem. I go ahead and execute a turn. Now notice this is where the problem starts. You see how it doesn't allow me to turn. It holds direction. It does not hold that other piece. So let's go ahead and kick my left foot in there. Whoa! Okay, that was actually kind of dangerous, not gonna lie. And we can see that this thing is just going. A little bit of left foot needed to kind of point in the direction that I wanted it to travel. And you can see it just stably crunches away. And for me, from my perspective, it kind of reminds me of like an Mi-24 going really, 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 really fast in the way that it's kind of, not that it fights you, but like I'm wiggling the controls back and forth, and you can see it barely has any impact, but we still need that left collective there to actually, I'm sorry, left anti-torque to get this thing to take a turn. So let's go ahead and reduce some power here. Of course, we don't reduce power, we reduce the collective angle of the blade. We'll come around this side, which will in turn reduce power as well. And line ourselves up back with our landing field. All right, so let's come on down here. And again, I feel like helicopter's twisted to the left. It's hard to explain, but like you can kind of see what I mean when it comes down here. And this is with all those different options engaged. So I'm just going to reduce my collective significantly, and I'm just going to aim for that same kind of landing area that we did a few moments ago. Let this thing slow down, and man, this is like flying on rails. It's look at how steady it is. Like I can't just, you can see for yourself how steady it is. Let me give it just a little bit. Notice there's no drama when I change. I'm rapidly changing the collective up and down. And notice nothing's happening. It's just going. Now that would require, even a professional helicopter pilot would have to fight with that if somebody's doing that to his collective. So let's go ahead and get ourselves set up over the ground here. Again, I'm just going to let go of the cyclic, and I'm not touching anything right now. I'm just sitting here, and you can see my pedals are completely neutral, and we're just kind of hovering a couple inches. Not a couple. I think we've got a couple feet going here. Yeah, we're just sort of chilling, and again, I'm not touching anything to give you an idea of how strong this effect is. So I'm going to go reduce that just a little bit. And like I said, the last 6 inches is always the hardest part of helicoptering. Just let it sit there and give it a little tap to the right. It does seem like it wants to. Oh, that's pretty authentic. When it enters that helicopter rotor and ground effect, it's a very real thing. Thunk, and we're here. Oh my gosh, look at how smooth that was. No drama in the slightest. So let's bring back up that screen again. We'll go back up to piloting real quickly here. Scroll on down. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and disengage this cyclic control. So let's go ahead and apply that. Now we've only got the tail rotor to help us out here. So let's see what happens this time. Give it some power, and that's much better. So this is good. So what we have now is that we have more direct control of the cyclic. As a matter of fact, if I let go, see the helicopter's twisting to the, I should probably interfere here. So it is no longer affecting that, but the tail rotor is still doing its thing full blast. Now, the reason I really like this setting, and I recommend if you're learning to fly these helicopters, why you should consider this, is because this allows you to concentrate on one aspect of a hover, and that's going to be kind of that lateral and longitudinal position, not that vertical position. So now the cool thing here is as I tilt myself to the left and start getting myself into a hover, you can see that I'm not having to work the pedals at all, and I can maintain and just concentrate on the cyclic aspect of the experience of hovering. Whereas if you let go, it starts to twist itself out of control, just like it normally would. So coming down here, we'll go ahead and shut that one off, and we'll turn the assisted cyclic back on. So now this is the one I'm most curious about, because now we have to deal with the tail rotor. Now the reason this is interesting is right now don't have any hands at all on the cyclic. The only thing I'm doing right now is working the pedals. Now the reason I really like this is this allows you the experience of learning how the pedals work and how they respond with different power changes. You know, if I increase the collective here, I will be able to use my anti-torque pedals very aggressively just to find that exact sweet spot. But the cyclic, like I said, it's just chilling there. I'm not even touching it right now, and it's holding us extremely steady, which is absolutely to the credit of the folks who engineered these flight controls to make this that easy to control. So let's go ahead and press escape again. Assistance options. We'll go ahead and hide this one. Back to piloting. I set this back to hard. I'll set that back to apply. Go ahead and head back. It looks good to me. And now we're back to normal. Now the cool thing here is after everything's been programmed and you practice those components individually, you can now use them. So here comes the question of all. Which one of these settings should you be using? Should you use any of them? Should you use none of them? And I'm going to say this nice and simply. Use what works for you. You know, I've said that a million times and other things. For me, when I fly helicopters, I want the experience of flying a helicopter. You know, I want to have to earn it. I want my little landings to be whoa, whoa, when I'm trying to get that last 6 inches. You know, for me, that's a very, very authentic sensation, kind of a thing like that. But for folks, let's say you're on an Xbox game controller. I don't necessarily recommend flying without those aids. I think the experience will be very much kind of miserable, to be honest. You know, I think of Grand Theft Auto helicopters, for example. You know, you just sort of tip them in the way you want to go. There's no dealing with any of the, the secondary forces that are imposed upon a helicopter as you're kind of navigating. But one of the things that you're going to find is you will become dependent on it. So as you're using this, if you're very, very serious about getting the full helicopter experience, I can't recommend enough to basically concentrate on one sort of aspect. Either I'm going to do it realistically and deal with bouncing all over the runway, or I'm going to do it with the settings. Now, using the alternate one, is it better to use the cyclic assist or better to use the anti-torque assist? In my opinion, it's going to make more sense for you to use the anti-torque assist more so than it's going to make the cyclic assist. The cyclic assist, in my opinion, this is really where it gets challenging to do safe hovers. The anti-torque on the flip side is that one little thing. It's almost like rudder pedals for a regular pilot that you need to you need to almost feel it, if that makes sense. But it's one of those things that you can add in later with less concern. Enjoy.